Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are director Tom Ford and actress Jordan Ladd. Writer, photographer, director Tom Ford was born in a large family of 5 children in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Because they couldn't afford to send him to college, Tom left Pittsburgh and at 17 headed to Houston, where he worked for Gulf Oil. You didn't want to go into debt by taking a student loan, and after a few years you went into advertising. So you went to Gulf Oil, then you went into advertising.
I got into advertising, I fell into it. When the
You fell in the oil pit.
I fell from the oil patch. I did promotional work within the oil patch.
I see, yeah.
And a lot of the people, when the acquisitions started going on in the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of the executives were leaving and forming their own companies. They knew me, and they needed promotion.
So that's how it happened. Then you started your own advertising company.
And the business was so good at the time, I couldn't screw up enough not to make money. So I never had to learn the hard way until later in life.
Oh, so the motivation was that they knew you.
They knew me, they needed the work, and it was like, come to me, you know, and it was a handout almost.
But also in your agency, you handled consumer foods.
I did that as a result of the failure of the oil industry in the early 80s. I had to scramble and look for something else. In Houston, Texas, oil was king, but there were some other industries, and food service was one of them.
And Coca, was it? Who was it? I forgot.
The first account that I won was actually, you know, the account of the world. It was Coca-Cola, but it was a little-known aspect of Coca-Cola. It was Coca-Cola Foods, and the first thing I did for them was a $250 coupon for the back of a apple juice carton.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you buy your apple juice and then you go get a...
Well, you know, there's that coupon, 25 cents off on your next purchase.
Right.
Those kind of jobs weren't good enough for the large New York agencies. It was a niche job, and that's how I got my foot in the door.
So that was very cool. You created that?
Oh,
kind of.
I didn't create that line of marketing, but we did expand it. All the junk that was falling out of your Sunday newspapers for years, those freestanding inserts.
Exactly.
We did a lot of that, and you've seen what that's grown into today. We kill more trees with that kind of advertising than anything. But, you know, that's how I made my bread and butter back then.
But, you know, you were really tapping into your artistic side and not realizing it, because all those things you were doing were very artistic.
They were. I look at it a different way. I felt more like an artistic whore. You know, you have something
I know what you mean.
Pure and noble, and you sell it to the highest bidder to do whatever they want. And
yeah, but you created it, and then
yeah, it is art, and I would tell myself that every night. You know, at least you're doing something along the lines of what you enjoy. But the bad part about that is when you work at the ice cream store, you know, you're so tired of ice cream at the end of the day. Right. So my art did suffer because I had no ambition to do anything on my own.
But what about then, that kind of got you into the portraiture that you were wanting to do?
Photographing ads are all about creating an image, and when you're selling consumer goods, there's consumers in there, so people are involved.
Yeah.
And I love people, and to me the most beautiful thing to photograph is a human being.
And so we have that one picture of...
well, now I'm getting to do a little more of what I want to do.
Oh, that
on
wasn't
the side.
At the time?
No, I was still doing very commercial work.
That's right, you were
false
doing...
False colors, false everything.
Oh, and you were doing magazine covers and editorial, right?
I would do whatever I could sell. Exactly.
Is that what it was? Was it your job, or was it your fun job?
It was how I made my living.
Oh,
in between doing the things, there's the low end of the patch, the automobile ads and the Sunday stuff. And then there's, you kind of fight for the best jobs that everybody wants sometimes seem to pay the least.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah, because there's more competition for it. Exactly.
But so then you got into portraiture, and then tell us about the woman.
I loved painting portraits at first, and then I got into photography, and frankly, I just found that I was able to make a better living at photography over painting. And with photography and the advent of the digital age, it opened up so many horizons on what you could do, the tools you had to work with to manipulate an image or fabricate an image or create something with so much more dimension than the original image. I was able to mix my two art fields, photography and illustration, and I can do, as you look at some of my work, parts of it are real and the other parts look real, but they can't be real.
Is it? Yeah. Were you self-taught in photography as well?
Self-taught. I learned back in the day when it was film, so it was a slow learning curve and expensive because all your mistakes you paid for in film and processing. But around the 2000, when the digital equipment was realizing higher resolutions, I just got back into it with a vengeance, and it dropped the cost, and it lessened the learning curve, and it's you see immediately
so
what you're doing.
So tell me about this picture of this woman.
Well, what we were creating here is a feeling and an emotion in a narrative that is nothing more than an instant captured in time. So lighting, composition, all the things that go into great art, and you just have to set it up to capture it all in an instant in a camera.
But it's dark. You wanted it to be dark.
I wanted it to be dark because the photography is the science of light. So it's the light that you capture that focuses your attention, and that's how you direct the eye to what you think the interest of that image is.
The other thing that I saw a lot of your photographs was a series of nudes, and they're absolutely so beautiful. And that nude with the car and the woman with the wings. Well,
I did a series of what I call fallen angels or angels on the earth, and these are artistic nudes of the feminine form, which I say that I celebrate and honor, but I just basically enjoy it. And we depicted different scenes and stories with these women with angelic wings. And
fantastic.
What you don't know is going on behind you could be an angel in another dimension or whatever. You have full license.
That's fantastic. And the other one, I think, the woman on the bicycle.
That is something that the kid in me brought out. First of all, the free-spirited nature of riding a bicycle. I do remember it from my childhood. My first ride on a bicycle, I felt like I was flying. Now, to do that entirely naked,
it looks like she's flying
in an urban setting.
Yeah.
Think of the freedom that expresses and the confidence in your nature and yourself. And to me,
it's beautiful, and the lighting is great, and the sky is great. So, I think you made little stories about these pictures that you
create a story in your head as you're setting it up. And that's what led me into film.
That's what I was wondering.
Exactly, I could see you going there.
Yep, there you were. You have a short film called?
My short is a love story with a little bit of horror in it, because things don't always go the way they're planned. But I grew up in the 70s, and I like the horror films of the 70s. So it's a short film, and it's a horror story. It's called The Stray, and it's about a love that has gone bad, not just once, but over and over again because of reincarnation. So it's two individuals trapped in a cycle of horror in a loving relationship.
So was filmmaking always your goal as you started photography?
It was never my goal until
it never was.
Just I realized one day I'm creating these scenes that are very detailed sets, but it's an instant.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what you were doing,
right? And then I thought, man, now we can put this into motion. Technology's changed so much in the last 5 years. For a lot less money, I can do so much more than I could do. And now I'm free to explore that.
So Stray was invited to the Cannes Film Festival. It's a short film.
It wasn't so much invited as it got in.
It got in.
And I'm still wondering how.
Well, but that's the thing, right? How long is a short film?
Well, there's a lot of different definitions. Commercially, for most festival submissions, you want to be under 8 minutes. Mine's
Really?
28 minutes.
Oh.
But there's different definitions, usually anything under 40 minutes.
I see,
and they
I
like
see.
to, even them out around 15. But you have a better opportunity of getting in if it's short.
And why make a short film?
Because you can't afford to do the feature. And that's the primary version, or else you're going to pitch and sell the feature off the short.
I see. I think it's very trendy now, isn't it, short films? A lot of feature films have been made from these little shorts that even celebrities, actors put together.
Yeah, well, as money gets tighter everywhere, in Europe and in the United States, for films, they want to see what you're capable of first. Like, show me. And a short's a perfect way to do that.
So when you did Stray, did you cast it?
I did. I casted it. It doesn't have a very large cast. Again, it was so directed by budget, which there was none of, that everything was written around what can I do for the least amount of money.
Okay. Did we have a budget at all?
You'll laugh. It was $400.
Oh, so that was a really good budget.
Really. I mean, most of that went to paying for the food for the people who came to
That's
work.
what they always say. They always say your actors come, your crew comes because they want to be a part of something creative.
If they believe in the script, they'll come.
They want to,
and that gives
but you have to feed them.
that gives you encouragement when people. And I'm always amazed that someone's willing to do something for free.
Where was your location? Where'd you do the location?
The location is a 104-year-old home. It's a craftsman-style home in Highland Park, the northeast hills of the Los Angeles area.
Fantastic, because it's kind of creepy.
Well, it can be warm or creepy depending on the
your
angle of the
film?
camera and the
Yeah,
lighting.
is that what you had to do?
Well, we wanted a setting that has been there as long as the story has been going on. And the feature story starts in the 30s and goes through the 70s until present day. And the Stray, the short, only dealt with present day because it's just a short version of the feature.
And who was in it?
Well, Monica was in it, Monica Ford, and Allison Evans. They were the two leads. And being a love story, I'll say that it was a lesbian love story. But the distinction we wanted to make about this was to draw no distinction to it. I wanted it to just be a normal relationship. We can all dream and hope that one day society will accept, human nature, whatever it is, if it's different from yours. And so I wanted to make no distinction about it being a lesbian relationship, just two women who happen to be in love, who have been in love before, and keep falling into this cycle of it's an insanity and it leads to violence.
So you wrote it, too.
I wrote it.
You wrote it, directed it.
Then I learned Final Cut Pro to edit it.
Oh, you did that, too.
I even wrote the music.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the music.
Thanks to GarageBand, which is just an application that comes with your Apple computer.
I think this is so great for you to tell us because we have so many people in the audience who love or would love to do something like that.
I'm not
Don't
a
have the
musician.
courage.
It took me 2 days to come up with the 8 notes that basically make up the soundtrack. But you have the flexibility with these digital programs to do things you could never do before. And when you're that broke, you have a lot of inspiration to try new things. And the reason why I took it all on myself was that I couldn't afford to pay anyone. But to say that I was able to do the movie myself is wrong, because I had, a handful of wonderful friends and actors and crew that volunteered their time. And the difference between art and painting a picture and shooting a still, you cannot make a film by yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
cannot.
And I'm so glad you came. It's such an inspirational story, and I thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, Tom, before we leave, do you ever get confused by as being the designer Tom Ford from Gucci?
I do sometimes when I'm trying to make dinner reservations, and it's a good thing until I show up. It's like, your table will be ready maybe 40 minutes.
Oh, after you've been there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with Jordan Ladd. Hi, I'm with actress Jordan Ladd, who was born and raised in Los Angeles. She's had to prove herself in the business because of her Hollywood background. Grandfather, actor Alan Ladd, father, producer David Ladd, and mother, actress Cheryl Ladd. Jordan has been in commercials, on TV, and in film. She actually started at the age of 2. What was that all about?
Well, both my parents at that point were struggling actors, and they had a pretty strict policy of not allowing me to appear on camera as a child actor past the age of 3. So I happened to get a Polaroid commercial with James Garner that I have no recollection of whatsoever.
How could you at 2?
How could I at 2? But the good news is they stashed that money away that I had made on the commercial so that when I became older, I could supplement my actor's income with the little money I made as a kid.
Well, that was
to
great.
Pay the rent. It was very smart.
Did you continue doing commercials, or was that the end of it?
No, that was the end of it. My dad had been a child star, and so he was very specific about me not entering the field as a youth. And I was allowed to do that after college.
So you went to Westlake School.
I did.
And then you went to Southern Methodist.
I went to Southern Methodist, but I only lasted a year because...
Was there a drama school there?
There is a drama school there. However, I just barely went to class at all. And I was far more interested in going to the movies during my classes, yes. And the summer before, I had taken a professional acting class in Los Angeles, and it changed my tune about going to college altogether. So I really didn't want to be there. I really wanted to start pursuing my career professionally.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Once you came back, did you start taking acting classes? And who did you take acting classes with coming from, that background? Who do you go to?
Well, amazingly, both my parents as actors had studied with a man named Milton Katselas.
Oh, I love Milton.
Milton. He's a legend. But I didn't study with him. I studied with his ex-wife, Lynette Katselas, who used to teach the youth division of his program. So I was fortunate enough to get into her class.
That was Beverly Hills Playhouse, right?
It was.
Isn't that what he had? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so you started with Milton, and
No, I started with
you started
Lynette.
with her. But she must have had the same kind of doctrine that Milton believed in, and the strength of the theater.
Absolutely. She was, Lynette Katselas was a great person to really kind of break myself in her class, and I think a lot of really wonderful people ended up coming out of there.
Did you take dancing, singing?
I'm not much of a singer, no. I have certain family members that are great singers, and in 4-part harmony they get me to stop because I always mess up the song.
So you're not musical?
I love music. I think I'm musical. I'm musical in my own mind, but on a professional level, no.
Could you go on the stage and do a musical?
You know what? I could sell it. It wouldn't be very good, technically very good, but I think I could. I had the nerve to go up there and sell it.
That's the main part, isn't it? That's the big part. What about dance?
I enjoy dancing too, but I'm not formally trained in dancing either. But
well, once you got into acting and you started acting, did you ever act in one of your father's productions? Were you in the Mod Squad, or were you in anything that he did?
No, I wasn't in anything that my dad produced, and
he did the movie, right? Mod Squad.
He did the movie version of Mod Squad, which came out in the late '90s, and I auditioned for it. And I didn't get it. Yes, I did. And I didn't make it past the first round. And of course, a much more seasoned, better actress at the time, Claire Danes, ended up doing the role. Oh. But I gave it the old college try, and he wasn't in the room, of course, because that would be too nerve-wracking. But no, I somehow I've managed to get my work through everybody but my family.
That's fantastic, though, because that's like part of what you wanted to do. You didn't want to live off the Ladd name.
Absolutely, and certainly these days, so many people dine out on their family name, and I come from a family that really supports you doing things yourself. So,
but it can open the door. But as you said, it opened the door, but you didn't get the part.
It can open the door, and then it can slam in your face if you're terrible, which happened a few times early on.
Well, what about acting with your mother?
Acting with my mother. I had been acting for a little while, and a project came along. I'd been acting about 5 years or so, and this was after working with Greg Araki, who I know you know.
Yes, we want to talk about Greg Araki because you had, first of all, gotten a role in one of his films. And
it was my first job that I was ever cast in.
And then what happened with your family?
My mother read the script, and I woke up to her in tears, and she said, under no circumstances are you doing this movie. Called Greg, my friend Greg, Mr. Rocky at home, and said, my daughter will not be doing this movie. And, you know, to make a long story short, Greg and I ended up staying friends. He made that movie with another actress. It was a great movie. We stayed friends, and then I worked in an ensemble movie of his called Nowhere. So he's still one of my oldest, dearest friends.
He is very on the edge, and I think it was funny that your story, your mother saying you couldn't be in it, but that he, on the end, said thank you.
He said a big effing no thanks to Cheryl Ladd, and then he actually gave me personally, as his friend, a thank you.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
So your mother was really watching your career at that time, but did she let you be in a film with her or on TV?
We were in a, it wasn't about letting, it was that separately we had been approached to do a movie for cable. Where we actually were not in any scenes.
Oh, you weren't.
Together.
You didn't play mother-daughter?
No, we did.
Oh.
We just, most of our work was separate. I play a young woman, a teenage girl that's abducted by somebody off the internet.
I see.
So most of my work was separate from her, and it came to us both separately.
So you got along okay on the set?
We stayed in different hotels, and we were, you know, we were rehearsing at nights and rehashing scenes and trying to kind of, you know, we were actresses together, professionals.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
It's fantastic, and I at that point I learned. I had the realization that I had actually absorbed so much of her professionalism just from visiting her on the set, that I had known things out of simply watching her. So
you can't go to class for those kind of things. You can't learn them. You have to have it inbred, or you have to be there watching someone who knows how to do it. The big coincidence of this film we were going to talk about today, which is titled Grace, and which was written by Paul Soldat. Soldat?
It's so funny. It's S-O-L-E-T, so I want to say Soleil, but it's actually Solid rhymes with wallet.
Solid, yes. Okay,
yes.
So I was trying not to be French. But
Soleil.
There was a Soleil.
He deserves that kind of moniker, you know?
I know, he's fantastic too. But the coincidence was you filmed Grace in Saskatchewan 50 years after your grandfather, Alan Ladd, made a film with Shelley Winters, and it was called Saskatchewan?
That's amazing that you know that, because my only point of reference for Saskatchewan, up until we shot Grace in Regina, Canada, was my grandfather's movie. So I almost didn't, I knew it existed, obviously, from looking at a map, but I really had no point of reference.
You mean the city?
Yes.
That's funny, isn't it?
Yes.
There's no relationship or anything from the movie, from Saskatchewan to Grace. There's nothing.
There's absolutely
just
no.
the title of where you were.
Yes, absolutely. There's no relationship to the piece.
So, tell us the story about Grace. You play Grace, and believe me, Jordan, you look like you're 6 feet tall. You look like this tall, elegant housewife.
You know what's wonderful?
And you're so short.
You know what's so wonderful? I did something with Faye Dunaway's son, and she said, you remind me of Julie Christie, because Julie Christie's so tiny and in real life, and yet on screen she appears so tall.
Oh, she does.
And I thought, she's just absolutely my acting hero. You could,
and
so
true.
are you, Faye.
So Faye and Julie.
This is amazing to hear this coming from you, but
it is true. So tell us the story about what Paul wrote.
Paul wrote an incredibly dark but profound tale of a woman named Madeline Matheson who is desperate to conceive a child with her husband, and had failed miscarriages up until the point that they're able to conceive. Madeline carries the child until about 8 months when, unfortunately, she and her husband and her pregnant self are all in a car accident. He's killed. The baby inside of my character, Grace, turns out to be her name, hence the title of the movie. So the baby's name is Grace.
Yes.
She's killed inside me. However, I carry the child to term and give natural birth to it. At which point I will her back to life. And
how did you do all that? How your expressions? He did all these close-ups on you, and your expressions, and your paleness, and everything about it. How'd you do it? How did you feel like walking pregnant and getting in that tub to give birth?
A lot of the
how'd you research it all?
There was research. It really was. It was a lot, mostly preparation for the month prior to it. And I worked closely with a midwife and another pregnant woman, and observed how she held her body, and so it was an extraordinary learning experience for me.
But then it turns out to be a genre film, which are horror films, right?
Yes, but it actually plays like a thriller.
I think so too. So is that what genre is?
Yes, a genre would be like a comedy. Comedy is a genre.
Yeah, that's what I wondered, why they call it that.
I don't know what the origin of them getting the term horror specifically gets the term genre.
Right. We know it's a genre. We know it's a horror film because it really turns out to be horrific. And I was reading somewhere where you're number 5 on the hot horror list. So do you play in a lot of these horror movies?
I've had quite an experience in this world, in this horror genre. Uh-huh. And it's funny because I would never watch horror movies.
Well, did you watch this? Did you watch this?
Oh, I've seen it a million times.
Did you frighten yourself when you saw what was going on?
There were moments in the movie that I was absolutely terrified.
Yeah. Did you help Paul in any way when you were filming it? Was there anything you could do that?
Well, I think because he's not the first man to ever have a baby. I think it was important that he had a real female's perspective on it.
Oh, so you did give him.
And so yes, so I definitely did, and I wanted to put my heart into it because I believed in it. So I made my presence known.
When you go on the set, there's like all this blood and gore, and what do they do? How do they make you up? Does it take a long time?
Amazingly, it takes an amazingly long time to work with prosthetics and blood, and you remove it and reapply it. So.
And what was the blood? And what were the prosthetics? Oh, you had to use a.
Yeah, belly. I missed that belly. I had a big silicone belly, and everywhere I went, everyone knew I wasn't pregnant, but people were nicer to me. They'd hold doors for me. And of course, I'd have a cigarette occasionally.
What's she doing?
Yes, it literally was worth stopping traffic over. I would never in a million years have a cigarette pregnant, but I did enjoy wearing. I miss having my silicone stomach.
Did this go to lots of festivals?
This movie went to a lot of festivals. We premiered at Sundance, which is...
Yeah, how did you feel about that? Were you with the audience watching it?
I was. It was the first time I got to see it with an audience. And I had, it was such a sobering piece for me to work on that I had no perception of how it was going to play. So the first time I got to see it was at midnight with a packed house at Sundance and a really excited crowd. So... I can't think of a better way to see a movie you worked on for the first time.
And did you feel like that was you up there? How do you feel like that when you see all this blood? Your boobs are coming out.
My boobs give me less insecurity than my own voice. It's sort of like hearing your voice on your answering machine. You think, do I really sound like that? I don't love watching myself, but because I worked so closely with this movie. I've had to let go of that and continually watch it at festivals. Although I take breaks, I still beat myself up for things I wish I could go back and make better.
I wondered about that, yeah.
But I think every writer does that. I think every actor must do that, or director. They always want to go back and fix. because you grow.
Yeah, I think you were fantastic. I was
you
like
so
so
much.
impressed because I went in with no notes. I didn't know who was in it. I'd never heard of Paul Solet before. I didn't know anything about it, and I was actually really blown away. And what kind of role are you going to have next?
I'm hoping for a comedy.
Yeah,
and I hope I get to make out with lots of cute guys.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. See you next time.